Hi everyone and welcome to Slow Stitch Style. I'm Catherine and this is my little corner of the internet where I talk about all things making. Today I'm going to be talking about scraps and how I feel about them, my plans for all my knitting yarn scraps and also my fabric scraps. So let's get into the video. I have quite a complicated relationship with scrap. In a lot of my life I'm really happy to give stuff away and I try and live quite minimally, but when it comes to scraps I find them really hard to let go of, and so I end up sort of hoarding them. Might not be the best word. I guess that sort of comes from feeling this responsibility to use all the fabric and yarn that I buy, not only because you've invested a lot of money into it, but also that sort of environmental impact of not wanting to just throw stuff away. But with that comes this sense of guilt and this sort of burden of wanting to be responsible, and that feels like this quite hard duality sometimes with making. And I have made lots of things with scraps. I have the closet called Pouf just here. I mean, I did make it slightly less deep because it's so heavy, and that's full of scraps. I've made multiple draft excluders in my home. I've made lots of patchwork blankets in the past, and it gets to a stage where you're like, well, what am I meant to do? I just can't keep making all this stuff. And the other thing I should say about like scrappy looking clothing is that's not really my style. I dress like, how would I define how I dress? Maybe a little bit more classic. I'm not really one for colour or pattern. So I think scrap projects can lean into that a little bit more, and it's just not really my vibe. So I can struggle with it. So yeah, I just wanted to give that bit of context before we get into it and I talk about my plans. I should also say, well, when I'm saying scrap, I'm talking about anything that's left over from a knitting or sewing project where it's not enough to make a garment. So for my fabric, it's fabric that's left over where I couldn't make an adult garment. And with my knitting, it's often yarn that's left over from when I've made a jumper or socks that I am then trying to find something to do with. So I thought I would get started with the knitting stuff first and show you all of my scraps, and then we'll get onto the sewing stuff, and I'll talk also a bit about how I organise my sewing scraps. But yarn. So I keep my yarn in a basket. So this is all like the scrappy yarn and the single skeins basically. If I ever have a jumper weight, that lives in a bag and often lives downstairs in the living room in a basket because I'm knitting on it. It's very rare that I have multiple jumper weights at a time. So I'm going to go through all of these and talk about my plans for each thing, and I'll also pop up some images. So the first thing I want to talk about is my sock yarns. So I have some little bits here. I think I'm going to have to put the name of this yarn because I can't remember it. I've had it for so long. And really it's not enough to do anything with, so I need to figure out something to do with this. We also have this yellow colour, which is Sock&Co yarn, which I have worked into two pairs of socks now for Graham. So one was the Yoke socks where I used this, and then a green from Sock&Co to make those. And then I also use these in a Springfrost pair of socks with this yarn from Earth Yarns, I think the name of the company is. So we have quite a few sock yarn skeins. And then I have this pink as well that's left over from John Arbon. I have made a pair of textured socks out of this, and then I also made myself a pair of oak socks in the Earth Yarns with a pink heel and stripe on it. But what I want to do with some of these at the very least is make the flower garden socks by Renarde Endormie. I'll put the name in so that people can find that because I think my pronunciation is really not great. And to make that, I am going to use this skein of Sock&Co yarn. So this colourway is the Chalcedony colour 123. I really am struggling to speak today, aren't I? So I'll use that as the main sock colour. And then I'm thinking the green, obviously, for the stems. And then I was really umming and ahhing about which colours to use with what. So originally, I think I was going to stick more to like the pattern design and use these all together. So the pink, the yellow, the green and the blue. But I actually think I prefer it with the cream of the earth yarns. I think they just all go together a little bit better. It's quite hard to hold them. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking I'll make the garden socks out with. And then my other sock yarns at the moment, these really little scrappy bits, I'm not sure. I'll just have to keep hold of them and see for now if I get any other sort of inspiration. I should also say I do have a little bit more sock yarn in here. And this is the West Yorkshire Spinners. So this is the sort of self-striping in the owl colourway, and I have already made a pair of socks for Graham using this. And then to finish making those, I then ended up buying the poppy seed because that was the recommended colour to match with this, so the heel and the toes. So I can make another pair, but then I'm going to have loads of this left, so I might look at making another pair of Colourwork socks, maybe using the yellow with it. And see how that goes. So lots of socks in the making. Next up, I want to talk about some yarn that got left over from Graham's fun jumper. So this is Debbie Bliss Sapphire. It's in the milk colourway, so it's like this really nice creamy colour. It's 43% baby alpaca, 42% merino wool and 15% linen, and it is so soft and squishy. So I've ended up with 200 gram skeins left over and a little bit, and I'm hoping that I can make the number 19 Balaclava by Lana Grossa. It's like just a really nice pullover hood, and I think that would be so cosy for in the winter when you just want a little bit of extra warmth. So that's my plan for those. So I'm looking forward to that. Next up, I have some Cascade 220 in the grey, and I also have quite a bit of Kid Silk Haze left over in a paler grey. So I've made a vest from these, the V-neck sweater vest by Petite Knit, and these are the leftovers. And what I'm hoping to make with these, at first I was tempted to make another Sophie scarf, but I realised that there's a pattern that I had favourited called the Chiro fingerless mitts on Ravelry by Knitsoever, and it's a free pattern, and I should just have the exact perfect yardage of the merino, Kilstick Haze, sorry, and this to make them, and it will use it up much better than the knitting, than the Sophie scarf pattern will, so that's good. I was about to say than the knitting for Olive because I have lots of remnants of knitting for Olive yarn, and actually I also have some more Cascade yarn and Rowan Kid Silk Haze as well. So these are all odds and ends from projects, and I am thinking that I will make scrunchies with these potentially. So there's a Colourwork Scrunchie pattern by Dr Dianna on Ravelry, which is a free pattern. They're like gridded scrunchies and they look really good. So I think that's an option. Or I'll talk more about this in the sewing, but maybe making miniature garments with these, so we shall see. So that's all of my sort of fingering and lace weight, and I apologise if you've heard traffic noise there. My living room's right onto the street. I also have some of this left, and I have no idea what to do with it. It's an Aran weight yarn, and I got it from Ireland when I visited, maybe in 2017. So I've made a beret with it, and this is a leftover. It's a very woolly wool. It's a beautiful like bluey grey. I love this sort of colour, but I just don't know what to do with it. So I've got the ball there and then a bit there. I think it's about 44 grams, if I remember right. So any ideas, please let me know. Another sort of unknown with my yarn is these leftovers of the Roma Garn Finial. So I have a whole skein and a partial skein here as well. So this is in the colour 4124, which is really lovely blue. I made myself the Festive Yoke pullover in it, and this is left over, and again quite a woolly wool, so I need to look through Ravelry and make some plans. And then the last yarn that I am unsure of at the moment is this yarn from Knitting for Olive, and again this is one I forgot the name of last time in my last video, but it's that one again. So I need to figure out what I want to do with this, sort of an odd amount. The colour is sort of lending me to think of doing stars. So one thing I didn't grab is the Debbie Bliss yarn here that I have it in the yellow from the Fun Jumper, and I'm making stars, which I did talk about in my last video if you'd like to go and have a look at them. So just little crochet stars that I've done. And I feel like this would lend itself well to something like that, sort of a star, or again, maybe thinking about miniature garments, which I'll get onto in a second. And that's all of my yarn. So I really don't have a massive yarn stash. I do try and keep it down because, as I mentioned, I find having lots of stuff stressful. And if it overflows the basket, that means I have got too much of it basically, and that is how I try and operate with my yarn stash. So I feel good about the plans for these and getting it down, and typically when I try and tidy them up, they all try and escape me. So yeah, that's the yarn basket, and that's the scraps that I have at the moment for that. So I'll just pop that down to the side. Now I want to talk about my sewing plans and a little bit as well about how I organise my sewing scraps. So I have a couple of baskets that I keep near me when I'm sewing. So on the floor next to my sewing table upstairs, I have this basket, and in here I just sort of chuck all the scraps normally, and anything else that I also is like textile waste. So also in here are things like this pair of socks that were Graham's, but the toe pad area here has like a massive hole in. Like that bit is like beyond repair, and I probably should have repaired it earlier. I do know how to darn, but yeah, I often don't get to the mending. Also in here is things like, this is a shirt that I again mentioned in my last video that had a big rip in the sleeve. Looking at this again, I realised I could have made this into a shorter sleeve, but then when I tried it on, or even a sleeveless, sorry, when I tried it on, the sleeves are tight. So a sleeveless top is an option, but I also realised that I had took all the buttons off to recycle and reuse them. So there are some garment things like that. Again, like there's a jersey t-shirt of Graham's that has so many holes around the neckline. There's like underwear I've made, the Josie bra here, a bit in a lace, and I just don't wear it and I don't find it comfortable, but I don't think I can donate that. Maybe I can and I'm wrong. Another pair of socks of Graham's that are beyond repair, although actually this one looks okay. Maybe it's the other one. Oh yeah, that one's really bad. This one is on the edge. I mean, I could try and repair that, and he has an odd sock. But anyway, and then the other thing in this bag is a organza bag that if you've ever bought yarn, I think it's from Wool Warehouse or somewhere, and they send it in these horrible organza bags, but it's quite helpful to keep basically what I've heard referred to as cabbage. So this is all of the really tiny bits of scrap, so everything from bits of yarn from projects that are tiny, seam bits that I've cut away, really small bits of fabric that I really can't do anything with really. And I should say I had organised my scraps yesterday when I knew that I wanted to film this video, and because originally this was full of all of this just loose with all of this and then also some bigger bits of fabric, but I've tried to separate that off, and that now lives in this tub, which is starting to overflow. So I keep 3 tubs like this in my sewing room. One has my sewing patterns in, one has all my scrap yarns in, and the other has scrap fabrics in, sorry, and the other has all of my works in progress in. So as I mentioned, with my fabric, I do try and keep it in sections in here. Basically, like, they're not big enough to make a garment for an adult, but they're big enough that I can do something with them, whether that's patchwork or whatever. And originally they were just stacked in any Who Hole order, but I did go through yesterday and organise them into sort of project type, based on what I want to do with them. So I will talk through those in a moment. But yeah, you can see it's starting to overflow. So I've decided that's why I need to address the scraps and create some plans. And I'm hoping actually that September might be my month of working through scrap projects, although I think this video might come out on my birthday, and if so, I might be distracted by a birthday gift that I got for myself. So I have ordered yarn for the poppy sweater or the poppy vest. So I ordered some Jameson's, is it and Sons or Smiths? I've ordered some yarn anyway to make that, so that is something that I would like to make in September as a birthday gift to myself. But if not, I really want to try and work through some of these other yarn scrap projects and my fabric scrap projects. So I'm going to get into what those fabric scrap projects are now. And one is currently a work in progress, and that is this quilt. I won't be able to hold all of it up. I think it's about 90 centimetres wide and maybe 120 long. I might be making that up. I will measure it and see. So on one side it is triangular pieces all sewn together in sort of pinwheels and then sewn along. And I've used a mix of fabrics left over from other projects. So we have this beautiful Merchant and Mills fabric here, which I made a cushion cover out of. There's this Japanese cotton cloth here, which was a gift from a friend, and I made a shirt that I really didn't like and it fit so uncomfortably, so then I recycled it to use in this. This is a green gauze, or cotton voile, sorry, from Merchant and Mills again, that I've used. And then there's also another green fabric that was from a charity shop, and I made Graham a shirt out of it, and these are the leftover pieces. So I really love this side. And this was like the ordered side, and I've been hand stitching this, like English paper piecing style quilting, for the last year maybe. So I was doing like 3 or 4 blocks a month and then sewing them on. And then on the other side, I've done kind of like crazy quilting, if you've ever seen that. So what I started doing was making little scrappy squares. And again, there's some of that original Merchant and Mills fabric, but another fabric that I made, I brought their pre-quilted fabric to make a blanket for the living room, and that's sort of offcuts from the edge. Again, the green fabric from the shirt. I should have also said, sorry, this creamy colour is just a roll of like calico that I have, and I thought it's quite a nice colour to offset it. And yeah, I'm really happy with this patchwork quilt so far. What have I got left to do on it? So recently I've done all the hand stitching, so it's kind of like a borrow or shishiko stitch style, and that was also using some stash cotton thread that I've had for ages. I'm really terrible for buying like beads and embroidery cottons and then doing nothing with them, so I was really happy to get those used. And I looked at the labels on them, and I think they were each 30 meters, so if there was the whole amount on them, I've used 90 meters of cotton thread to quilt through this. So yeah, that's crazy. I've just got to like cut the edges now and tidy them up, and then bind it. And I did have some binding in my stash. It was like a jersey binding that I'd used for some baby makes, but I have decided that what I would like to do is actually use some of the leftover fabric still from this quilt. So I have bundled up my scraps into little groups, and this grouping is some remnants of the fabrics from the quilt still. So we have some little bits, as you can see. Obviously that's not going to be enough for the binding, and there's still some very thin strips of this Merchant and Mills fabric. It's just so nice. But I do have some bigger pieces of the Japanese cotton that I mentioned. So you can see this was the shirt piece where the dart was, and I'm hoping I can cut bias binding out of those to bind the edges. And then with the rest of it, I am hoping to make another patchwork to make maybe a cushion cover that also goes in my living room that matches it, but a very sort of American patchwork traditional style quilt block as a cushion cover. So that would deal with all of these scraps, ranging from the bigger bits to the small bits. So that's all for the patchwork quilt. So I'm very excited about getting that finished. So that's that. Next up in my stash is a big bundle of jersey. And this ranges from quite a big piece of black rib, that I made a turtleneck sort of jumper, t-shirt out of. It was a Georgia pattern from Mimi G. And there's quite a lot left of this, but not enough to make another t-shirt. There's also some white jersey left over from, again, making t-shirts. I think I've made one for me. I've made a t-shirt for me, a polo neck for me. But again, I might see if I can actually fit another t-shirt out of this, because Graham would like a new white t-shirt. So we'll see. Another black used for a polo neck. As you can tell, I really like polo necks. They're like my staple in the winter. I've also made the period pants using this. And then we have a black bamboo jersey, and at the front here is actually a t-shirt that I had made. But I didn't like how drapey it was as a t-shirt, and it just always felt weird and funny. And also I realised that black tops I don't really like. Like, I love black, but I feel like a black t-shirt and black trousers just looks a little bit too heavy for what I like to wear. So this big jersey bundle is all hopefully going to become underwear of some descript. So I have the Axis tank that I would still like to make, so I'm going to hopefully twirl that using some of these. I also want to make more period pants, so I've still got some of the materials to make the linings for those, and there's definitely enough to make some pants here. And then I also have the Josie bra and pant pattern Made My Wardrobe, and I have made that before. I think I just showed you in the lace, which I didn't like, but I think it could look really nice in a jersey. So the jersey bundle is going to become underwear, so that's my plan for those. Next in the bin of fabric scraps are these three pieces. So we have a navy and white double gauze, so this is left over from the Stevie top that I've made for myself. We have a white cotton voile or lawn. It's a really lightweight cotton, and I made myself a pussy bow blouse out of that, but I don't like it, so you can see it's quite sheer. And then I also have a white double gauze left over from another Stevie top that I've made for myself. And these are all fairly big pieces, and what I'm hoping is that I can make the Sydney romper, which is a baby grow pattern, but I do have some doubts about that, because maybe you can tell I don't have children, because making white baby grows feels like a bad decision and feels not very practical. So yeah, do shout at me in the comments if you think that is not a wise decision to make, but I just really like these fabrics, and as I said, unfortunately there's not enough to do anything else with them, and part of me is like, well, actually if I do make the white and this creamy one into a baby grow, I could always dye it another colour. I should also say I actually don't know anyone at the minute that's having babies. I only got into making stuff for babies last year when lots of people I worked with or knew were having kids. and I really enjoyed it. I quite like making small things, and they're always really cute, but I have no plans myself to become a parent just yet. So yeah, part of me is like, do I just make them and then it's just ready? Who knows, but hopefully baby things. And then we also have another pile of like fairly big remnant scraps. I should say I tend to ignore pattern lay diagrams and just try and cut things as efficiently as possible, which sometimes leaves me with bigger bits of fabric than I would like. So I would describe this pile as sort of relatively big scrap pieces, but big enough to make pocket bags with. So if I make a pair of trousers or a coat or a jacket that needs pockets, then, you know, some fairly substantial pieces of fabric. And these are all really nice fabrics. So this is a printed cotton from Merchant & Mills. Again, just beautiful. So I made a shirt for Graham out of this. And I think, oh, wouldn't it be nice if he then also had some trousers where his pockets were made from that. So again, that was a shirt for Graham. This was one of my shirts. It could be a bag lining as well, actually. Some cream linen. There's some black double gauze, a blue cotton, some trouser weight fabric, this colourful yellow fabric that made Graham stuff, and black lawn as well. So that's going to be my pile of pocket weight fabric. So that's what these scrappy remnants will become. I do have a piece of something here which is so beautiful. So this is it, UIG Harris tweed, and this was gifted to me by a friend. She got it at Merchant & Mills for me. It's a beautiful blue and black tweed herringbone. I have made a knitting project bag with a piece of this. So the original remnant I had was 35 centimetres times 150. I'm not sure how much I have left now, but yeah, I made a small project bag that fits like a knitting project in, and then I still got some more, so I probably will make something similar to that. Or I was thinking maybe like a little wash bag, maybe, if I put in like a waterproof lining, because the only sort of wash bag I have are like those clear plastic things you use when you go to an airport. So whenever you go on holiday and you want to take like your toiletries, it's just going in one of those, which, you know, is fine. But yeah, this is like really special fabric that I need to figure out what to do with, and I love it. I'm also thinking if I could find a really small like crossbody bag that fits like a phone in and a purse, then that's an option. Or I could even make a new purse, because the purse I have is like a long wallet purse I made years and years ago, but it's still working. So part of me is hesitant just to make a new one for the sake of it. But yeah, if you have any good ideas for beautiful woolly wool, then let me know. I would love to find something to do with that. But I definitely want to make something for myself using that yarn. At the bottom of my scrap bin this probably shouldn't be in here, because I do actually think this is probably enough to make an adult garment. So it's this blue canvas, and I think I can squeeze out a pair of shorts for Graham. I think we bought like 3 meters of this, and I've made him 2 pairs of trousers. Maybe we bought 4 meters. I can't remember, but I think we got it at Ditto Fabrics. Yes, we got it at Ditto Fabrics when we were staying down south. So I went to Merchant & Mills on that holiday, and then we went to Brighton as well, and Ditto Fabrics had a really great range of fabrics, and Graham got this for himself. It's like a bluey grey fabric, quite heavyweight, brilliant for trousers. It'd be a brilliant jacket. So as I said, I think I can make him some shorts using this, or maybe twirl the jacket. So I think I'm actually going to take that out of my scrap bin and put it with my fabric lens, because it is actually enough to do something with. And this is my last pile of stuff. Sorry, my camera decided to cut out there. So this is a range of smaller pieces up to a bigger size piece. For example, there is a bit of cotton here that's actually quite big. So it's not big enough to make a baby grow with, but it's big enough to do something with. So yeah, this pile really ranges in sizes, and I have also added some bits into here that I would just like to use for this project. And this project is venturing into making little dollies. So I got this Luna Lepins and Friends book from a charity shop for 95p, and I think when I looked online recently I saw that it's like £15 or £16 to get this new. And actually when I was in the charity shop, the lady, a lady came up to me and was like, "Is that your book?" And I was like, "Oh well, I've not bought it yet." I thought she was going to be like, "Oh, I really want it," but she just recommended it to me and said how much she loved it and that you can get more of them at the works apparently. So it has all the patterns in to make garments for the friends, but also the patterns to make the friends as well. So they're all in the back, the pattern pieces. So things like coats and whatnot. So there's the option to make the badger, a fox, the rabbit, the cat, and a mouse. So yeah, I thought this would be a great opportunity to use up like lots of these scrappy things to make garments for little things, so even littler than human beings, dolls. I have like this weird, is it weird? I have like this thing about dolls. I find them really interesting, especially like cloth dolls, and I've been wanting to make some for a while, so I'm hoping I can use that for those. So like this white cotton, I'm actually hoping I can make one of the animals out of that, maybe the cat, like a really nice white cat, or for bits on the fox. I know the pattern suggests using felt to make the animal friends, but I would rather try and use what I have to do that. I'm also hoping to use some of the oilskin remnants from Graham's coat to maybe make one of them a really fun little yellow coat, or like little welly boots in the yellow. I've got black denim that I thought might be quite nice for the badger, or to make maybe like a little black mouse, and some black corduroy, which I think would make, again, like maybe a little black cat who's corduroy. I think it'd be really nice to have them textured. And then using things like my blue linen offcuts to make dresses. If I don't go ahead with using the white fabrics that I have for baby grows, I definitely want to make maybe some of the dresses out of the book using that. There's like this really cute little crossbody dress that I just think is adorable. So yeah, Wilhelmina, who's the mouse, you can make her a little wrap dress, which I think is just so cute. And there's also like a granddad shirt you can make, which I'd like to make one using the fabric shirting here that I have. So that's my plans for those bits of scraps as well. And that takes me to the end of what I want to do with my scraps basically. Hopefully that's been somewhat interesting to you. If you have any recommendations of scrap projects and things I can do with the things that I have, then please do let me know. I'm always really open to finding out more. And yeah, it could be really exciting. I'm hoping in my next video I'm going to do a little bit of a more sort of podcast style episode where I talk about the things that I've been making, so what I've got works in progress, things that I've done since this last video, and also maybe any acquisitions I get, because as I mentioned, this is hopefully coming out on my birthday, and I normally do treat myself at this time of year to some fabric and yarn, so we'll see. So if you made it all the way through the video, I just want to say a massive thank you. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you could give me a like, that'd be fantastic. And thank you very much.